Hi everybody. Today I wanted to do something a little different than what I've done so far with my videos. I want to chat a bit about an article I read on a blog. So I haven't really done this before, but this article I read was so interesting that I thought I really would like to chat it out a bit on a video. So the article itself is called The Scaffolding, and it's by Hugh Howey. It's on Hugh Howey's blog called The Wayfinder. Hugh Howey, if you're not familiar with him, is a very very good writer. I've read a little of his stuff. He's the writer of the Silo trilogy, of which I've only read Wool. I think there are two more after that, and the Mollified Saga, as well as Beacon 23 novels, the sort of science fiction, apocalyptic kind of stuff, generally speaking, I think. I have not ever done a book chat on any of his books yet because I read Wool back when before I was doing videos, but I do plan to read some more of his stuff coming up on a future TBR and TBR list, and so I will have videos there. But back to the article at hand. It's called The Scaffolding, and I called it up here on my iPad just so you can sort of see what it looks like on his blog, which is called The Wayfinder, which you should be able to find it through a search. But if not, I will put the link to it in in the details. So, what is this article about, and why did it strike me as so interesting? Well, the article is about this idea of, he starts out the article talking about, parking. When you go into a parking lot, sometimes you see this car maybe parked in a weird kind of taking up two spaces or whatever, and usually, that's something that a lot of us find very annoying. And, so he sort of builds a narrative around that, like, well, it's not necessarily that this person's just being inconsiderate. It could be that the person's that was the only space to park because someone earlier parked on the line, which caused this cascade effect of down the road. This person being looking like they're taking up these two spaces in a really weird way, but because what's happened in the interim is that all the other people in the parking lot have left except for this last car, and so it looks like, from just a person who didn't see all that history, that this person is being, a jerk by parking this way. And then he brings up this other idea. So this is an idea of, like how that got built, how that parking situation came to be the way that it was. And then, he brings up this, this notion of arches and bridges. And, that it's so puzzling when you think about how arches are built, where, the rocks are all, the stones are all stacked on each other, and then there's this keystone that's at the very top, and the arch is actually supported by the weight of itself. So that keystone, once it's locked into place, then the arch, just based on its own, the forces within itself, stays, put. But then, if a person's just kind of like, how did they do that without the stones falling? If the keystone is the key that keeps everything in place, then how did they build it? Because the thing is, what they did is they had scaffolding. So they built a scaffolding that the arch was built on that supported it until they could put the keystone in place. And then when they removed the keystone, of course, they removed all of the scaffolding. So all you see is this beautiful arch. So, and then, so like the pyramids as well, people have like puzzled over, how did they do that? How did they build the pyramids? Well, obviously they had a form of scaffolding, that went up the sides of the pyramid, and that's how they built it. But then once it was done, they removed all the scaffolding, so all you see is the finished structure. So he gave these first two examples of an example of kind of an ugly structure, meaning this parking situation, that got built up into something that was disharmonious, disharmonious in this parking lot, and as opposed to a bridge or an arch, whenever it's built, it's this harmonious structure once the scaffolding's left. So it's both good and bad. With scaffolding. And then the third point he makes about scaffolding, then I'll get to the main point, is archaeology. So, whenever archaeologists study, whenever they're doing a dig in an ancient town or an ancient site, of course, the only things left there are the things that didn't compose. So there's the things that are metal, the things that just somehow managed to get preserved in the right, because they were in the right place, in the right conditions where they didn't decay. So generally this is metal, stone, pottery. So this is a lot of what we get. So an archaeologist coming and viewing this town, this is all they see. They don't see that scaffolding of that whole culture that existed there, the whole lives of the people there. The only thing that they're seeing is these few remains. And then what they have to do is they have to build that scaffolding of what that culture was like, just based on what they could find and the conditions that they could find. So they're building this, this structure around that. And therefore building an explanation around that. So it really struck me because he makes the point in this article about bigotry and how he ran across, when he was in college, he ran across, someone who came in and hurling racial slurs and whatnot into a bar. And, he really felt pity for them because he saw the scaffolding around that. And that person sort of prisoner within this scaffolding of creating this sort of mindset and this sort of worldview. It didn't just come out of nowhere. It's structured. It's over time. There's been a scaffolding that existed to create it, and then we don't, the scaffolding was removed as time went on, so we don't necessarily see all the scaffolding that led to behaviors like this sort of bigotry behavior. So I thought that was extremely, insightful. And I think this idea of scaffolding as our social construction, which I've talked about in several other videos, how we construct the world around us and how we construct reality around us. And a lot of the books that I've chatted about and, read actually discuss this same topic, because this is, I think, kind of the plight of humanity throughout all time has been like, who are we? Where are we? How did we get here? And this means, how did things become the way they are? Why is our life and our society the way that it is? And, I think it is really because of this, this idea of structure. It's this idea because we constructed it over time, not just us, but generations upon generations prior to us. So what they've left us with now is what we have, and it behooves us really, to try to recognize, the scaffolding around what we're doing, what we're saying, what we're thinking, and evaluating that. Is this really valid to me today? Is this really valid to me as a good person? Is this really valid? Is this a really valid view to have? Is this a really valid action to have? Or am I just reacting, off of the scaffolding that's been presented to me in my life? So I hope I explained that somewhat well. I just thought that was such a good analogy. I just feel like this idea of scaffolding is so rich and so valuable to us today. As we're as things change and we need to change with, or as things change and we actually need to evolve in new ways, to address new challenges and new technologies, and we just need to become a different species. We need to constantly be reevaluating our scaffolding and where we are on it. So I think I'll leave it at that. I hope you found that somewhat interesting, or as interesting as I did. I will be reading some more Hugh Howey books coming up, and I will do some chats on those too, just because he's really a really good author, a great author, and really seems to really be one of the good guys. So, all right, take care. Talk to you again soon. Bye.